On the right, however, look, if you look in the last week, we saw one gathering down at Ole Miss where a student got up and asked the vice president a viciously anti-Israel question filled with lies. And here's what was most disturbing. When the questioner finished speaking, cheers erupted from the crowd. Wasn't everybody. My guess is it was 20 to 30% of the crowd. And listen, this was not Berkeley. This was not Yale. This is old friggin' Miss. Or just a couple of days ago down at Auburn, again, a student got up and asked a question unloading on Israel. That question, every single word was wrong, including but again, look at the reaction of the students. About 30% cheered. And young people are being lied to. And by the way, one of the lies is, I'm not anti-Semitic, I don't dislike Jews, I just hate Israel. And one of the favorite shields is, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just anti-Zionist. It's really funny, the people who speak about Zionist, somehow they get very concerned at people being killed in Gaza. And yet, after President Trump negotiates a peace deal and Hamas lines Palestinians up and shoots them in the back of the head, executing them one after the other, those same voices are utterly silent. Because if it's Palestinians being murdered by Hamas terrorists, that's not a concern. Their only concern is if they can attack Israel and Jews for doing so.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant America. Thank you for joining me on November 8th. 2025. It is a remarkable day. Lots and lots of things happening. The divide of the MAGA between the never-Trumper lobby that has essentially taken over the MAGA Republicans, and where the actual MAGA people are now dissenting from the modern MAGA movement. And that was Ted Cruz talking about trying to defend the favoritism that's happening with Israel and the overcompensation between all the other countries and all the other topics and everything else. And I'm not trying to make this show completely about Israel, but it's like the forbidden fruit that you can't talk about, you can't have a discussion. It just doesn't pass the sniff test. And the Gen Z community, the Charlie Kirk legacy, the actual Charlie Kirk legacy, which Candace Owens is defending spectacularly, getting defamed and destroyed, or attempted to be destroyed in every way, it's only building her up. And I have some great news. Candace has now, this past week, become the #1 podcast online. She is the #1 listened to voice online right now. And she's simply just trying to figure out what happened to Charlie Kirk. And she's uncovering a bunch of stones and everything else. I want to get into that. I want to talk about some of the progressions and transformations that's happening with AI. I want to talk about some economic news. But first, I want to get into what Ted Cruz was talking about. I want to play that full question and interview with J.D. Vance in its entirety so you can decide what the interpretation is and why Ted seems to viciously be attacking the student for asking a legitimate question. And it's a question that we're all now asking ourselves, looking back. We're 9 months in, 10 months in now to the Trump administration, and we're all sitting back, all these promises that were made, all of these things that Trump has said to us and promised to us, why we got behind him, even though we had speculation, even though we had questions leading up to the elections. It's that best of bad worlds scenario to where we much rather get behind Trump than we would, say, a Kamala Harris, or somebody like that. So we all gave him a chance. We all gave him an opportunity. He brought in RFK. He brought in Tulsi Gabbard. He brought in the never Trumper J.D. Vance as vice president, which, you know, I get it. You got to make sacrifices. He brought in Elon Musk. He brought in all of these outside people that we feel could have actually shifted the administration and given us an opportunity to cleanse this disgusting, degenerate, out of control, deep state, executive state group of oligarchs that have been making empty promises and making zero deliveries. And so we all put our tail between our legs, got behind Trump, and gave him the biggest win, gave him a mandate with the Senate and the House and everything. Now is the time to go after the Epstein list. Now is the time to go after the people that stole the election in 2020. Now is the time to go after the people that created and released COVID. The hundreds of thousands of people that capitulated to these companies to shove a mask on your child, to shut down your schools, to destroy your business, to consolidate the economy, to where the rich get richer, to get everybody working at home, to where now they don't even want to go back. They've lost all the momentum of working and growing this great economy. And it's not all Trump. Trump is simply just one man. Let's remember that. Trump is just one person. So we can't put everything on Trump like he's the end all be all, everything else. There is direct accountability that needs to happen with all of us in regards to this. Direct accountability. And we can't just sit back and watch and just, this is not a spectator sport. So I'm not blaming everything. He's only one man. He can only do so much. But we elected his team and got behind his people. And at the end of the day, a lot of these people are just so blindly obsessed with making sure that Israel's pockets are full and Israel has all the support, where their cities burning and being absolutely decimated with poverty and just destruction that's happening all over our economy and the lives of the American people. Now, I will give it to him. The border is essentially closed where it was leaking. That's priority number one. But how are we going to get these tens and millions of people that have come here illegally over the past 4 years, and upwards of 20, 30 million people that are here, in which the Democrats are now arguing for their protection, their health care? They don't care about you. But they do care about talking about and asking serious questions about Israel. And they're just simply asking questions. Just asking legitimate questions. We should be, as Americans, with our free speech, be able to ask any questions that we want. But what's so promising, and what I wanted to make this segment about, is I personally believe that Gen Z, which is the Charlie Kirk legacy, which is also the reason why whoever, they, let's use the figment term they, took him out. Because he was leading a movement in a direction that didn't serve the state. And we weren't being put in the trick bag like all the boomers have, and even the Gen Xers that are all pro-Trump, no accountability, pro-Trump. Remember, Trump is the one that shut down the country during COVID. Let's not forget that. Trump capitulated to the entire medical infrastructure system. Trump rolled out the vaccine with Operation Warp Speed, which he's still super proud of. which I think it killed between 20 and 60, just massive amounts of disruption. And there's still nanobots floating around with everybody that nobody knows about what it is. But let's listen to what this student asked at Ole Miss that had Ted Cruz in such a conniption fit to do that. Take a listen.
I'm a Christian man, and I'm just confused why that there's this notion that we might have owe Israel something, or that they're our greatest ally, or that we have to support this multi-hundred-billion-dollar foreign aid package to Israel to cover this, to quote Charlie Kirk, ethnic cleansing in Gaza. I'm just confused why this idea has come around, considering the fact that not only does their religion not agree with ours, but also openly supports the prosecution of ours.
Yeah, so let me say a few things about this. First of all, when the President of the United States says America first, that means that he pursues the interests of Americans first. That is our entire foreign policy. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have alliances, that you're not going to work with other countries from time to time. And that is what the president believes, is that Israel, sometimes they have similar interests to the United States and we're going to work with them in that case. Sometimes they don't have similar interests to the United States. And this example, the most recent Gaza peace plan that all of us have been working on very hard for the past few weeks, the president of the United States could only get that peace deal done by actually being willing to apply leverage to the state of Israel. So when people say that Israel is somehow manipulating or controlling the president of the United States, they're not controlling this president of the United States, which is one of the reasons why we've been able to have some of the success that we've had in the Middle East. Now, you ask about sort of Jews disagreeing with Christians on certain religious ideas. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the realities is that Jews do not believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Obviously, Christians do believe that. There are some significant theological disagreements between Christians and Jews. My attitude is, let's have those conversations. Let's have those disagreements when we have them. But if there are shared areas of interest, we ought to be willing to do that too. For example, one thing I really care about is the preservation of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Christians believe that is the site where Jesus Christ was crucified, and also that his tomb is right there as well. My attitude is, if we can work with our friends in Israel to make sure that Christians have safe access to that site, that's an obvious area of common interest. I'm fine with that. What I'm not okay with is any country coming before the interests of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we're American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's what we're going to do. That's what we try to do every single day, I promise you. Thank you.
There you go. So that's it in its entire context. Nothing extreme, nothing stating like this kid is threatening the Jewish ways and the Jewish sanctity of Israel. He's just simply asking questions like, why is the Trump administration doing that? Maybe we just want some more clarification. And why is this kid getting attacked? Why is Ted Cruz coming out so relentlessly and attacking this kid he just asked some simple questions? It's not a big deal. Or is it a big deal? And why are these people, and this is happening everywhere. If you're on X right now and looking at it, it's happening everywhere to where there's such a disconnect and such a overly reactive response to the people that support the Israel lobby that it's eerie and it's telling. It's almost revealing in the sense like if, you're in the bushes and you're in a gunfight and you fire your weapon, somebody's going to poke their head up and you go, I see you. I know where you're at. And so Gen Z is really exploring this, and I think that they are going to be the saving grace for the Republic in the future as these people grow stronger. Because of the death of Charlie Kirk, I think they underestimated what's going to be happening next. All right, welcome back, folks. Second segment. Thank you very much for joining me. It's a glorious day Glorious day today. I want to get into some other news. I could talk about this. This is a very in-depth discussion, and it's a dividing topic amongst Republicans. Rightfully, there's a lot of money floating around in regards to the Israel lobby and the sanctuary of Israel, and I understand it. As a Christian man, I understand the defense of the holy site and everything else. But we can't blindly just give another country a bunch of money that doesn't necessarily serve our best interest. And seeing the relentless attacks on people like Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, I don't even understand the attacks on Tucker Carlson. But again, Tucker Carlson is just simply asking relatively soft, normal, reasonable questions, just like this Ole Miss student that's now being attacked online by all the Rhino Republicans. Are we that simple-minded? Are we that unintellectually capable of understanding the argument? And are we falling into this black versus white, left versus right, red versus blue dichotomy? I just feel this is it's just another example. Before it was racism, before it was this, and that created the divide. Then it was COVID created the divide. You're either pro-vaccine or you're for killing grandma. Remember the dichotomy of that? It's no, dude, I just don't want to get vaccinated. This thing seems really dangerous. Anybody that's looking at it, this is really dangerous. You have to be psychotic or retarded to put this in your body. How does anybody not see this? But it was really revealing during the time of COVID. I have a rule. I will never date anybody that's been vaccinated, whether they regret it or not, because I believe that there is a consciousness and a discernment ability in which other aspects of a relationship, that those challenges will become prevalent in your relationship, and that person appears to be weak. You need, if you ever have a partner, if you want a partner in your life, you need somebody that's strong and has the ability to make those type of decisions when you're not around. And I think the COVID vaccine was very prevalent. It was very obvious in that decision making, to where anybody that kind of fell into that, you just understand that's a weak link in your chain. And when you're involving yourself with somebody, you want to make sure that they're able to make those decisions, because you can't hover and be around somebody all the time. You're never going to control anybody to that level. You have to be able to have trust. And with trust becomes action. And action, seeing how people act when you're not around, seeing the decisions that people make when you're not with them, is very important. That's how you learn people. And the more that you learn them, you're like, hey, that's something that Josh would do. Or, hey, that's something that John would do if he was in this situation. When you get to know somebody, you tend to learn where their boundaries are. You learn their moral compass. You learn these things. And so that's just a fun fact. I know I'm getting off on a tangent here. Going over to other news, I want to talk about the economy and how the silver markets are being manipulated. And I'm just popping over to the new amazing website developed by Mike Adams called censored.news. I highly suggest everybody go to it. It's remarkable. To me, it's like how Drudge Report used to be before Drudge was broken and then just became a leftist wing for propaganda. Drudge used to be like a good staple back in 2014, 2015, maybe a little 2016. Then it started going sideways and just the algorithm got broke. But basically what Drudge was, it was just trending all of the articles on the internet and curating them on one website to where you can see what's trending, what the topics are, and it would just constantly be updating and shifting. Censored.news, you can go to censored.news. It does basically the same thing, except this isn't falling into the mainstream algorithms, which was what happens on social media. When they're trying to push a story, they pump it out through all these outlets, and they all essentially start regurgitating the same thing. Mike developed something off more alternative, free-thinking websites, and it's a lot more accurate, and it's a lot more concise and aligning with regular people and high IQ people. And it cuts out a lot of the noise. There's a lot of noise everywhere. And they're trying to pump out these dichotomy of, if you're not pro-Israel, if you're not for us giving hundreds of billions of dollars to Israel, that means that you must be for the terrorists. And it's not that simple. It's never that simple. And are we that low IQ to where we can't have an honest discussion, to where it's not either black or white? Is there no gray area in there? Is there no ability for debate or conversation anymore? Has that been lost? And usually when you're losing an argument or you're losing a debate, you start to develop personal attacks. You start to frame your argument into a box to where the response is going to be black or white. And we saw Laura Trump do that with the clip that I played earlier when she responded. And she changed the frame of the conversation and made it about Hamas, to where it's not, you then become and feel bad if you respond, because it's more complicated than that. You can't simplify me down and put me in a box. And the Gen Z community is really fighting back against that. Sorry, when we get back, I want to talk about the silver manipulation that's happening in the markets, what's going to be going on with silver, a lot of fascinating predictions. If you haven't got into the silver markets yet and you haven't bought any silver, it's still a really good time to do it. Plus the volatility with the industry and what's going on around the rest of the world. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Joshua Michael, Noncompliant America. In case you're wondering, with all of my intro music now, I've now moved it off of the cool, fun intros I used to do. I got hit with a bunch of copyright crap, and a bunch of my shows got taken down. I've recently moved to the Spotify app, which is now managing the show. If you do have Spotify and you have not followed us yet, make sure to go to Spotify, search for Noncompliant America, or you could go to my website, which is noncompliantamerica.com, or the new website that I just launched. Haven't formally launched it yet, but we're doing a soft launch right now. I'm working out some things with the designers, but I'm starting to write articles on topics and conversations that we have on this broadcast. And I'm just trying to create kind of a ecosystem of my own to be able to do that. And that's news.noncompliantamerica. That's news.noncompliantamerica. You can go to it and look at some articles, share some articles. The show is also being broadcasted and put on there as well. Or you can go to the X page at noncompliantaf. We have a TikTok now. We're going to be doing videos, lots of exciting things to further spread this message. And I just want to thank every single one of you for listening to the show, keeping me in the fight, having feedback, giving me articles, sending me information, all of that. So we're going to be doing a massive transformation and going into video, so I'm able to do more things online with that. So you can follow me, all of my handles, YouTube, TikTok, X, all of that is going to be very simple. It's at noncompliantaf. So make sure to check that out. I want to talk about the silver markets. I want to talk about what's going on with the silver manipulation. Silver has been manipulated for years and years. It's one of the most undervalued commodities, I believe, out there. Year over year, it's about 65% in growth. So if you're looking for investments and if you're looking for anything, I'm not a financial advisor, but what I see and what's going on with the markets and the global banks, how everybody's trying to rein in all their gold and silver right now, as well as the manufacturing benefits with the NVIDIA chips. I know we talked about the Samsung battery that's coming out, that they're looking to roll out 600 miles per charge in 9 minutes, and that's manufactured with silver. There's a lot of value in it. There's a lot of great value in it. But silver's being manipulated, and this is by Mark Thornton. He asks, are the fundamentals doing the work? Is the manipulated or fundamentals doing the work? Are they manipulating with algorithms and shorting the markets and everything else? Mark Thornton sifts through the evidence and finds a simpler story. Big players have gamed the markets before, but the long arc of silver prices reflects structural forces. This all goes all the way back to the 1960s. That pushed vast coin hoards, private stockpiles, decades of shifting industrial demands, and the rise of the product mining. What I do know is that China, COMEX, and India have stopped selling off their metals. And they're some of the biggest manufacturers and hoards of precious metals in the industry, and they are not simply exporting it. China has stopped that. So keep on the lookout for that. There's more to come. Stable coins, the US dollar's unexpected lifeline. There's a lot of volatility going on in the markets, and I think all of you can feel it. All of you can sense it. There's just less money going around. There's less people going to restaurants. There's less people doing things. I know banks are holding money a little bit longer, approving less. Even though the lower interest rates are doing their job, supposedly, I think we're in a much bigger situation and a much bigger bubble. So stay tuned on that. More going on with the tech industry. Mike Adams, I'm going to play a short clip, went on Alex Jones yesterday and talked about how AI is much further along than we think. And Mike Adams, the founder of Censored.news, is just doing phenomenal work. Not only is he the health ranger, he has some massive testing labs, some of the best testing labs in the industry. He's now getting into AI and doing coding and building all of that, where he has his own AI, which is BrightU.ai. And BrightU AI is so nice because it cites the sources. It actually gives you the reference links and articles of information that you ask for it. So if you're doing reports, filing reports, doing news stories, such as what I'm starting to do now, BrightU.ai is a great resource for that. But he gave a dire warning in regards to how much further along we actually are. And we talked about this last week with AI, is that are we past the point of no return? And has it already taken over our lives? In a lot of ways, it has. In a lot of ways, it really has taken its footing. Because just like an addict, you can't get off of it. You can't get away from it. So Mike is developing things, which is what Elon talks about, is developing a pro-human future integrated with the AI and using AI as the tool rather than the controller, right? It can be utilized in that. So let's get into this quick little article, quick little video clip that I want to play, and then we'll get into more of it after this.
Now, we are about to see in our economy, we're going to see the K-shaped economy, as they say, where the upper line of the K, that's going to be people who know how to use technology, and they will be abundant. They will live in that abundance era that Elon Musk is describing. If you know how to augment your intelligence, your business ideas, your entrepreneurship, your skill set, your interests using AI, you're going to do very well. The lower leg of that K-shaped economy is going to be the people who got left behind, the people who have very few skills that are obsolete. Those people are going to lose their jobs by the tens of millions in America over the next few years. Even worse, Alex, on the Eastern power grid, which powers 13 states, they have raised the power rates for the people in order to subsidize the power grid infrastructure build out for the data centers.
They are gouging humans to give basically free power to AI for the data centers.
Humans are going to be de-emphasized in the economy. Humans are going to be taxed to build the AI infrastructure, and then humans are going to be exterminated as soon as the AI.
So humans are going to level up, come together, and unify, or we're done. This is going to make us greater, though.
So I didn't say that the show was going to be light or simple, and it never was. It never has been. That's never been the purpose. The purpose for this show is to spread as much truth and follow the pulse of the trends to get you better prepared for your life, for your family, for the future. And this is a golden opportunity. This is the transformation, fourth turning that we are in to move forward into these new systems, into these new attack weapons, into these new traps that are being set all around us. Yes, it's not easy. It's never been easy. Life should never be easy. But there's a cup half full, half empty scenario that we're always in since the beginning of time, since the beginning of man. It's always been that. And so with technology, there's a decadence and a dependency that has basically swept our entire generations for the past 100 years to where we like to be lazy. We like things to do things for us. We want to go out to restaurants and have people serve us. And yes, that's been around since the beginning of time, but we've become very lazy in a situation to where right now, which is what Mike Adams was talking about, there's an opportunity now to where if you can make the decision and you decide within yourself that you're no longer going to be lazy, you'll be able to thrive exponentially in this next wave of economy. And by doing that is getting prepared, digging in, not just doom scrolling all the time on your phone, picking up sewing, picking up gardening, picking up trash at your neighbor's house, doing good things, being a good human, being involved, watching what's going on, spreading the message of God to people. People are more susceptible now to listen and talk about Jesus Christ, our Savior, more now than ever. And it's up to us to come together, fight these problems. Yeah, we could talk about Trump. We could talk about Israel. We could talk about COVID. We could talk about Bill Gates. We could talk about all of these people. But really where the power is the power of community and the power of speaking your voice to these leaders and holding their head accountable, even at a county level, even at a local level. Now, K2, which I think is a network that was taken over by the CNN Media Matters apparatus, it's just a propaganda wing. They hosted a town hall last night, and I'm going to play on the other side of this break. I'm going to play what one of the local Portland patrons that just was asking simple questions, but he had a really revealing, and this is on Oregon Citizen. She does a phenomenal job covering things in Oregon. So shout out to her at Oregon Citizen on X. She's always posting great things about Oregon, so make sure to check that out. But it's very revealing because they answered the question within the question, but also said it in a way that makes perfect sense, and it's a very reasonable argument. But a lot of people are ignoring this, but they're also not sitting down and they're realizing that democratic cities don't work. We'll be right back.
They never catching us slacking. Me and my buddy, we working hard for this money.
And welcome back, folks. Fourth segment. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate all the support. If you want to show some more love and support, go to news.noncompliantamerica.com or follow me on X at noncompliantAF. Before I went to the break, we were talking about Portland Citizen and his testimony in regards to the state of Portland and some of the challenges that he's having. And this is holding the county commissioners accountable and asking them serious questions. Let's take a listen.
Hello, my name is Sandeep Devakar. I live in downtown. In my neighborhood, there's a very large concentration of Section 8 senior housing. There's a lot of low-income seniors and a lot of people in recovery that live in my neighborhood. I live a block and a half from the 13th and Clay shelter. What we don't see in our neighborhood, the city is being extremely responsive. We see Portland Police Bike Squad around there. We see Portland Solutions being responsive. When we call in the engagement zone, they come and do something. What we see is the county working at cross purposes with the city. There's a lot of disabled people in the neighborhood that have to get by on the sidewalks, and they're filled with tents. And in the past, it would take weeks for the tents to be cleared. The tents are handed out by county social workers, and then the city pays to have to remove them. One of my neighbors was actually involved in a lawsuit with the city, the ADA lawsuit, which asked them to clear tents that were blocking sidewalks. But these folks, the downtown Safeway is a block and a half from where I live. I spoke with the pharmacist today before I came here, and he said he's really afraid this place is going to close because of all the stealing that happens with all the people that come in there. And if that closes, that whole area becomes a food desert. Those seniors have no place to go shop for food easily. None of them own cars. They have to walk, or if they're disabled, they use their motorized scooters. They also, many of them are on Medicaid, and that's the only pharmacy in the neighborhood. So my question for the county commissioner, I've written to the Commissioner Megan Moyer several times about the library. Basically, the reply I got was, to put it colloquially, is go pound sand. You're going to have to deal with this. That's not acceptable. We're taxpayers, and it seems like we've spent millions and millions on the drug users and all of the services supporting them. What about the regular people, the low-income seniors, the disabled people that have to get around, that are afraid to go out right now? I have a 90-year-old neighbor that she walks everywhere. She carries a gun. And many of those people will not shop in the neighborhood. They drive to Beaverton to go grocery shopping. The other thing is the public health crisis. I grew up in the third world. I've never seen things this bad. We take our shoes off at the door when we enter a home, and there's a reason for that, because you're bringing the dirt and the germs from the street. We have people defecating on the sidewalks in our neighborhood. I walked Councilor Canal around the neighborhood at 9 o'clock at night one night. He was shocked by what he saw.
Let them answer that, because I can see the frustration that you have there and a lot of the folks. And it's nothing. You've heard this before from a lot of these folks, and there's, I would imagine, no short-term fixes, right? What do you say to someone like that who lives in the community and struggles with this on a daily basis?
Go ahead. I think to start, there are some short-term fixes, right? I do think that
what are they?
Look at
what are the
not just
short-term
day
fixes?
centers, but just access to hygiene. I do think that there's been changes in policy that I'll let the chair talk about as far as tents.
Yeah, so just a bunch of nonsense by these people. And something that I wanted to get into and talk about, because we're all talking about the side effects. We're all talking about why are things happening this way? And we've talked about it many times on the show in regards to creating a problem, creating a crisis. When you have crisis, you give the government more money. They're trying to raise taxes. We're seeing what Tina Kotax is doing. We're seeing what all of these things are happening. It's important to recognize what the bigger picture is. And I think once you see the bigger picture, then you understand why things are happening the way that they are. Because just so you know, yes, these county commissioners, yeah, they might be good intentioned, but they're getting overruled, and they're playing part of a bigger plan. And what is that plan? I want to talk about it. It's called the Cloward-Piven strategy. Cloward-Piven strategy. Look it up. The core idea of this plan, which was developed in 1966, and just so you know, this is exactly what we're in. But the core idea in the plan is to create a full-blown crisis in the United States, to create a welfare system by encouraging millions of eligible poor people to simultaneously apply for benefits. Now they're seeing it done with illegals. Deliberately overwhelming and bankrupting the city governments. This collapse would force the federal government to step in and replace existing systems with guaranteed annual income. The end goal is complete dependency on the system. And we're seeing that with the threats of the SNAP programs, in which Oregon apparently was able to come up with that money, and they released all that yesterday, which would have been Friday. But it just is demonstrating and exposing the problem, the fundamental problem, and the realization how the 46.5 million people out of probably 380 million really living in this country, let's be honest, not 350 million or 330 million or whatever the census says. I know it's got to be more than that. 46.5 million people is an extraordinary amount of people. And now there's a lot of fraud associated with that, which we were very hopeful that Doge was going to get to the bottom of it. They did get to the bottom of it. Now, keep in mind, they still are doing cuts, doing things. But Elon stepped away because there was creating so much turmoil with them trying to do the good work. Now, there's 4 main steps to the Cloward-Piven strategy. Mass enrollment, organize the poor, demand every possible welfare benefit that they're entitled to, food stamps, housing, subsidies, Medicaid, etc. The overload of the system. They want to overload the system. I have inside contacts at the DHS in Oregon to where there's waves of people that come in. Now, it's gone exponentially down since the Trump administration, since he closed off the border. We had to stop the bleeding. That's first and foremost. But flood their bureaucracies with so many claims that they break down under weight. Now we have subsidies, NGOs handing out tents to the homeless. Then the city has to pay to go clean up the tents. Do you know why the homeless people leave their tents? Because they know they can go down to the food bank or go down to these health groups or subsidized groups, which are getting government funding, by the way. All these NGOs, they exist simply off of government funding. So that's your tax dollars that's paying for that. So the homeless people, they just leave all their crap because they don't care. They'll go back down to the shelter and they'll just get a brand new tent and then go pop it up somewhere else. No accountability, no oversight, no actual growth, no actual pressure that's put on these people to need to change their ways. They can go buy drugs, get a new tent, pop it up, get some new clothes, do this, go hang out for a night, wake up, leave it, go do it again. Step 3, create chaos and fiscal crisis. We're seeing that right now. Cities and states go bankrupt trying to meet the surge in demand. Now that's in collaboration with all the illegals. That's why they flood the illegals here. And that's why the Portland is defending them so much. Because the people defending them are the same people lining their pockets with the government subsidies to quote-unquote help them. Do you see how this works? Do you see where the allegiance actually lies? They don't care about you. They don't care that people can't get across the sidewalk to go to the pharmacy, and more than likely the pharmacy is actually going to close. They don't care about any of that because they're lining their pockets. It's all about money. Now, the 4th step is to force federal intervention, which is what we're seeing. Washington replaces the broken system with guaranteed annual income paid directly by the federal government. Now, the only caveat to why this may or may not work is because we do have Trump in the office. And I don't think he's going to do that. He'd rather send in the National Guard, which is now being blocked by these Oregon judges, and create cleanup, create order, create accountability, push these people. Why doesn't an NGO start a job fair where offering these people jobs where they can actually support themselves? Thanks for listening.